Hello, I'm your host Angelina, and you are listening to V.I.P podcast, where we talk about very important people, ponies, and pooches. In today's episode, we will be discussing fictional books and films and TV series about horses and dogs. Okay, so I love reading. The only issue is that I don't get much time to read as much as I'd like to. My genre of books is a little mixed, to be honest. So I quite like young adult books, from more realistic books to more mythological books. I'm going to go through some books about horses and dogs, tell you my opinions on them, and give you some ideas for yourself or others. So, when I was little, I would read books such as Unicorn School by Linda Chapman, and I love them. If you have any young children that love horses and unicorns, etc., then I highly recommend them. I believe there are 6 books to Unicorn School series, so that gives them plenty to read. I think Linda Chapman also writes other books about unicorns, horses, wild animals, and other mythical creatures, etc. Another children's book series I read when I was younger was Katie Price's Perfect Ponies. I thought these were great. They had little drawings near the front of the books with characters and the horses they would ride, just to help the children be able to picture images in their minds. As I remember, they were quite a fun read. Whilst at primary school, I read the series Spy Dog, which also went on to Spy Pups. As a child, I found the books so cool, like dogs as spies. I mean, what could possibly be any cooler? So these books were about a dog who went to spy school or someplace and learned to be a spy, and then somehow ends up getting rescued from a shelter by a family, I believe, where she then goes on to investigating bad people, etc. In the future, she then has a litter of puppies, and 2 of them, one called Star and one called Spud, go on to becoming spy pups. As you can see, my memory's a bit sketchy because I haven't read them in many years, so I'm sorry about that. Anyways, back along, I started to read the Pegasus books by Kate O'Hearn, and I say I started as I read the first 3 books and had caught up to before she published the next 3. And as I read them a few years ago, I'd like to reread the first 3 before continuing on to the rest, but I totally love these books. I love mythology, and these books involve Roman mythology. I have a bookshelf where all my favourite books are kept, and this series of books is definitely on there. It includes a horse-like creature and Roman mythology. What's not to love? A book I read while at secondary school was The Silver Brumby by Eileen Mitchell. Sorry, I mispronounced that. This is a slightly more realistic story. Is actually based off of real events that occurred in the Victorian High Country. I don't know why, but while reading this, it kind of gave me a rush that at times even felt slightly free. When I read, I kind of take such a long time to get through just one page because I have such a visual mind. I have to play it out in my head as if it were a film, I guess. I remember loving the way that this played out in my head. It was just as though I was there, and it was just, like I said, such a rush. Another book I read at secondary school was Michael McPurgo's Born to Run. It was a book about a champion greyhound's journey from owner to owner. It was such an emotional roller coaster, to be quite honest. Very emotional, yes. Reading the Chestnut Hill book series when I was younger didn't really do much for me. I wasn't able to understand things like canter, etc. But I read them once again when I was older, and I loved them, and I loved putting myself in the atmosphere of an equestrian school where, yes, there would be drama, but there was also amazing friendships, and the focus always went back to the horses. Not to mention the author, Lauren Brooke, also wrote the books to one of my favourite TV series, which is what the series is based off of, Heartland. The Chestnut Hill books also have special place in my bookcase, and I would highly recommend them to anyone who loves horses. I was talking to someone once about the Chestnut Hill books, actually, and she said that she had read something quite similar, a book series called Counterword Crest. So that is now on a long list of books I'm yet to read. I would like to. But if any of you listeners have heard or have read the book series Counterword Crest, let me know what you think of them, and I'm really interested to find out. There are so many books out there. Tell us some fictional books you have read that are about horses or dogs. I might even give them a read. So yeah, just put that in the comments. Okay, so moving on to films. I love films. They're so much more visually pleasing than reading a book sometimes. Well, that's my opinion anyways. Although there have been times when I really have disliked how a film was made in comparison to a book, I know most, if not all of these movies I'm about to talk about were books before they were films, but this is how I first witnessed, if you like, these stories. There are so many films out there about horses and dogs. The obvious classics, which most of you would have seen, such as Disney's Lady and the Tramp, 101 Dalmatians, 102 Dalmatians, and Bolt. If you haven't seen or heard of them, then right after this podcast, you need to go back to your childhood and watch those films right away. So let's start off the film section of this episode with one of my all-time favourite films. I don't care how old I get. Spirit the Stallion of the Cimarron, sorry again if I pronounce that wrong, will be one of the best films in existence. That's it. There is no... I cannot tell you how many times I have watched that film. I literally love it. I love the hidden meanings to this film and just everything about it, really. The eagle in the film, to me, represents Spirit's freedom, and how when he is captured, he yearns to be free so that he can once again run with the eagle. Anyways, Spirit is a film made by DreamWorks Animation and is set back in the 19th century American West. The story is about a stallion who grows up and to become a leader of his herd, then becomes interested in a new light that is flickering in the distance. He then goes on to discover humans. I won't tell you too much just in case you haven't watched it, but if you haven't, then I highly recommend you do so. In my opinion, there is only one issue with Spirit, and that is the new series that has recently come out, Spirit Riding Free. Now, I know kids love it, but I hate what they have done to the story. I haven't watched it, but I refuse to, and it's not really... It's more for kids, really, but anyway. In Spirit Riding Free, a young girl apparently bonds with Spirit, and he lets her ride him. However, in my opinion, Spirit is always classed as spirit that cannot be broken by his Indian friend. I can't remember the name of, I'm very sorry. So why now should that all change? But that's my opinion, obviously. Everyone has their own. Moving on to the 1994 classic Black Beauty, it was quite the emotional roller coaster too. It's the story of a horse that ends up going from owner to owner. The story is told by the stunning Black Stallion. The film kind of humanises the horse, and it made me feel empathetic towards him, and as I'm sure many others felt the same way too. There were two other horses that I loved in this film too. Ginger and Merrylegs, I think. They were brilliant. Another film I have watched in the past is Seabiscuit, which is about a horse and his career in racing. He was totally underestimated due to him being undersized, etc. This film is really uplifting, and in the end, both horse and jockey work hard to overcome their disadvantages and become winners. So yeah, if you want a feel-good film, go for that one. Secretariat is another well-known horse racing film, This is a story where a woman goes into the male-dominated sport industry of horse racing after taking charge of her father's stables. A horse she has then goes on to breaking records and winning the first Triple Crown, and it is based off of a true story. A very well-known film is War Horse, that was set back in World War I, actually in Devon, which is where I live. It's about a horse and his life on a farm. until he gets sent off to war. I get very emotional when watching this, especially at the scene where something terrible happens to Joey's friend, the black horse, Topthorn. But anyway, I won't give you too much on that if you haven't watched it, but it's a great film. It's quite educational, and if you like to know about the World War kind of atmosphere, I guess. Not a great one, but the horse, goes from owner to owner again, I guess you could say. But yeah. The Horse Whisperer is a film where a girl and her horse, along with her friend and her horse, go into an accident. If I remember correctly, the friend actually ended up dying. Anyways, unfortunately, the girl and her horse are injured, and they both now have problems with confidence and trust, etc. I mean, I don't blame them with how bad the accident was. If you ever have watched the film, or if you're going to, you'll understand. The girl's mother takes her and the horse into the countryside, into a Cowboys ranch, where the Cowboys are going to help try and get both of them back to where they were before the accident. And I watched this film when I was little, which I wouldn't recommend if you are like me and will imagine that bad accident happening to you as a young rider. Not great. But now I can watch the movie and be totally fine. Anyways, talking about Cowboys, a film I love is The Longest Ride. This is a film that I actually managed to get my boyfriend to watch with me, and he didn't mind it so much due to the other side of the story. I love Cowboys and all that, especially this one because he is played by Scott Eastwood. But it's not just about a cowboy riding bulls and all that, it's also about a love story. Well, love story, should I say. One of which is like an old and beautiful one, and with an old beautiful past, and one is just growing, if you like. It's going to grow into something beautiful. Yet both are connected by art. My boyfriend liked this film because he loved the way the story was planned out, especially the story of the old man with all the flashbacks and everything. He thought it was great. Another Western themed film is The Lone Ranger, which is more of an action type film. It's full of action and I just love it. It has a great plot twist too. It's a film I can enjoy with my dad too. He likes action movies, and well, I like Wild West themed and horses. I would recommend this as a great family movie. Like, we'll sit down and we'll watch it together. There is a stunning horse called Silver in this movie, and which is a horse that is wild and in fact chooses to give up his wild life so he can carry the Lone Ranger. Keeping with the Western cowboy theme a little longer, we have the movie Hidalgo. So the cowboy has to go on this treacherous long-distance horse race called the Ocean of Fire. The cowboy has to oblige. It's based in the Middle East with his American Mustang. He must race against crazy fast horses such as thoroughbreds. It's a race where all the best riders in the world go, and his reputation and his life and everything is all at stake. Okay, so moving on, have you ever seen the movie Flicker? I did many, many years ago, but I was so young that I unfortunately no longer remember exactly what happened, but I know it was a good film. So now I'm going to go and give that a rewatch along with Flicker 2 and Flicker 3 on Disney+, right after this. It's a movie about horses. Of course I'm going to like it. Talking about watching things, I have been recommended the film Togo, which is also a Disney film. Apparently it is so interesting. So this film is actually set back in 1925, where a dog called Togo is considered too weak and small to be competing in such an intense race, let alone lead the pack. It was an untold true story, according to the trailer I watched, and I got so emotional right at the end of the trailer, and it was just the trailer. It said something like, "I always thought he lived from the sled, when all along what he lived for was me." I don't know what came over me, but there we go. So, moving on, when I was younger, I was obsessed with dog films such as Hotel for Dogs, Beverly Hills Chihuahua, Snow Buddies, Santa Buddies, Space Buddies, Spooky Buddies, Treasure Buddies, Air Buddies, etc. They were some of my favourite feel-good movies. But if you have ever seen Racing Stripes when you were younger, and not again since then you honestly should. So when I have my riding lessons, before lockdown obviously, I would always joke with my riding instructor and I'd bring up quotes from Racing Stripes and I'd, that was a bit crazy to be honest. She's known me since I was 3, so there you go, she has to do it, bless her. So literally I'd say these quotes and she'd never actually seen the movie. So one day I got the DVD, I was like, right, you've got to watch it. And she did. And she said that her and her husband put it on and they watched it and they laughed the whole time. Because it's things when you're younger, you just think, oh yeah, it's a good film. But then when you watch it when you're older, there's just certain things. Maybe it's just my sense of humour, but I found it really funny. And there was one quote, well, it's more of a lyric really, I guess. When it's the scene of Buzz and Scuzz when they're in the stable and they turn on the radio and they go, walk this way, talk this. Sorry, I have to do their kind of accent. I really fail at that, but it's quite funny when I do it on the horse and start doing the little hand gestures. And I don't know how my horses put up with me, to be quite honest. Bless them, they need a medal each. Anyways, let's mention some more dog-based movies. Have you ever watched the Homeward Bound movies? These I watched when I was younger. I cried at them because parts were very sad and emotional. By the way, listeners, I don't know if you can tell, but I get very emotional at films, especially when they're about animals. Lion King gets me every time. One of the films I always cry at, without fail, is Marley and Me. I don't think I have met one dog owner that has not cried at it, to be fair. It's a rather comical film to begin with, but highly emotional towards the end. Again, another emotional film, gotta love them, is Hatchie, A Dog's Tale. I think that's how you pronounce it. So basically, a guy finds an abandoned dog and takes him in, and they both form an unbreakable bond. Then something terrible happens, and the dog doesn't understand. As you should probably know, you can't just tell an animal that, I'm very sorry, but your dad, he's no longer coming home. So he struggles with the separation from his best friend, and Alpha is a film that my father really badly wanted to watch, so we all sat down together as a family and we did just that. So this story is about a man who was thought to be dead by his tribe and was left, and a wolf who was left by his pack because he was wounded really badly. The man basically forms a bond with the wolf and becomes the first wolf to be domesticated, basically, on a journey to return to the boy's tribe. As you can probably guess by now, our family love dog or wolf-themed films. In fact, Red Dog is a film that is actually based on a true story. This again is a film where a dog creates an enormously strong bond with its owner, who then becomes the dog's true master. It's quite interesting, actually. So, if you have any films that you think I should give a watch, then please do comment them below. Anyways, who loves a good TV series? Who doesn't? So when we were younger, me and my best friend would watch The Saddle Club. We loved it. I remember wanting to go and visit the yard they were all on and just be a part of the atmosphere, really. Me and my friends would always choose characters and assign them to each other, etc. That's the kind of thing you do as a kid, isn't it? It's a great TV show for young horse riders, entertaining, and parts actually inform the child a fair amount of what can go wrong in the horse industry, etc., which is obviously important to learn, not to be scared of, but to learn. You've got to have a little bit of nerves, I guess, to keep you safe. A show I saw pop up on Netflix within the last few years is Free Rein. I can't say that I have watched it myself, but my mother tried, but unfortunately she wasn't exactly a fan of it much. I haven't watched it, and I don't know if I should give it a go or not. if you guys like the TV show, then please do let me know what you think of it, and if your reviews are good, I might just give it a watch. I did find a TV show called Ride a few years back. I loved it, but I believe that it is currently only one season, and I don't know if they'll ever make another one or not. I hope they do, because they left it on a real cliffhanger at the end, which makes me want more. However, the show did come out in 2016, so I highly doubt there will be another season. Anyways, my all-time favourite TV show is Heartland. This show is absolutely amazing. I cannot recommend this enough. It's about saving animals, especially horses. So, the author I mentioned earlier, Lauren Brooke, wrote the books that this series is based off of. The series is set on a ranch in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. So the story basically, let's go for a quote. So, following the Fleming Bartlett clan through love and loss, friendship and betrayal, marriage and children, end quote. It's just brilliant. If I am ever having a bad day with how badly my riding went, or something along the lines of anything in the horse industry, I would go home and I'd watch a few episodes of this show and then wake up the next day ready to go and ride my horse with a brand new and determined attitude. I don't know why, it just kind of worked for me. Obviously it's not that easy for everyone. There are times when it doesn't work and I have to really have a good talking to myself. But yeah, I love the film. It makes me want to aspire to be like the characters in there, because when I was little, I in fact wanted to be Amy Fleming. I wanted to be the Amy Fleming, but in Britain at Wrexhamstad here. So yeah, that was my big dream when I was little. So I'm going to leave you guys to it now. Go and read and watch anything you have heard here that sounds like something you could get into. Perhaps recommend some of this to your friends or family members. If you're a parent, you could go and use some of these things that I've read, or to watch for a child of your own. Horses and dogs are a big part of our lives, so including them into our free time too may not be for everyone, but it sure as hell is for me. If you have any suggestions for myself and other listeners, then please do post them in the comments for all of us to see. Thank you for joining me today on V.I.P Podcast. I'll speak to you all soon.